Well, let's talk about Germany then. So, you guys, so this was like your third assignment then.
Well, we went to school in Illinois. That's where you were born. And then we went to Albuquerque, and then we went to Washington, and then we went to school in Alabama, which I skipped.
Yeah.
And that was where you guys had your little uniforms and stuff.
Oh man.
Yellow and black, and you started kindergarten.
Huh. And I remember actually seeing a picture because you guys were in a trailer.
Yes, we were.
Yes.
There, but we were doing Halloween or something.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do remember seeing a picture of the three of us.
Well, I made uniforms for you guys because we
Yellow
were all
and black.
like bumblebees because we were cheerleaders for the squad. They would have inter squad.
Oh yeah, like intramural stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all the groups of I got together and decided what our uniforms would be, and we don't really have pictures of that. That's kind of
Well,
sad.
we have the book, and there are pictures. I don't. They may
None
be
of
black.
us.
They may be They may be black and white.
That's too bad. Okay.
So then we left there. I mean, halfway through the school, I got a call from personnel center, and they said your orders have been canceled. Where can we send you? So I mean, they literally were looking around to see, well, where else can we?
We had all of our stuff put into storage. And we had stuff to keep in storage and another part that was going to go with us. Because we were going to go stay in
Michigan.
a house in Michigan near Grandpa and Grandma. So, and
So all of our stuff was still there in Washington, D.C., and we're going to Germany.
that was a change of plans because he was going to Vietnam. Then we had to go back to D.C. and we had to pull everything out of storage.
And leave some of it and take
Decide
what's
what we were
going
gonna-
to Germany. So we took
It was weird. I mean, and we left all our stuff there, hoping they
laying
would put it
on the
back.
floor on the
Sidewalk
asphalt.
and stuff. And
And
we
we
left.
Outside?
Oh,
Yeah, it was out of the
betcha.
storage unit.
Oh.
Because we had to take it all out to
Oh,
decide
and separate it.
what are we going to take with us now. It was a total different change of
Yeah.
plan.
Probably different climate.
Oh, yeah.
And we didn't want to take our refrigerator and stuff like that with us which we would have taken to Michigan with us, I think. That kind of stuff. And then we went.
Went to Germany.
Because I remember a few things from Germany. I remember playing in the park. I don't really remember the off-base housing at Liederbach.
Don't you?
I don't. I remember a little bit about the third floor apartment.
Okay.
And I remember
was
the siren
on
going
base.
off, and I just flew out of my bed. And you were getting ready to go in for like an ORI.
That's a recall. ORI, yep.
Operational readiness inspection.
Okay, my main thing, with Jeff falling off and getting his head the first time.
That was day one.
Day one.
So you guys get to Germany. I'm sure it was plenty
It was in January.
eventful flight over because you had 3 kids and flying over to Germany.
He ended up taking Jeff, and I had you two, because Jeff was sick.
Yeah.
He really was. But
January.
it was the day after your birthday. I think we left on January 8th, because you had just turned 4. And Jeff was too.
Sick.
Anyway, yeah, that was just awful. I mean, it was an awful experience, I thought. Then we moved out to Liederbach, and you and Jeff were outside throwing stones down the stairs to the basement, and I came charging out to get after you.
The car was under the garage was
Yeah.
under the house. We'd drive down.
Yeah.
And
And you all 3 of you were outside, but it was you and Jeff that was throwing stones. I don't think she was. And
Not me.
You were always good.
Yep.
I went charging out and yelled at you, and the door shut, and it locked. And I didn't even have shoes on. I mean, I had slippers on. And I sent you, they had a little caretaker's house, and I sent you, my little 5-year-old, to see if you could get a key. Sure, no problem.
I can imagine that conversation.
you came back with one.
With a key.
Greg.
Pardon me, but we happen to be from the States, and we're only here recently.
We just got in last night.
We need a key.
From then, I kept the key around my neck because the door locked. I mean, it always locked.
Yeah.
And that was crazy. Anyway,
So then we moved back on base because the way when there was an ORI or some kind of exercise, you had to call everybody in, and nobody had phones.
yeah.
I mean, there were like 5 or 6 phones in the squadron,
Wow.
and people all were living
Yeah.
all out off base.
Didn't have cell phones.
And
They
so
didn't even have
the
home
ones
phones.
who had the phones were on the outside of the circle, and they would get the call, and then we would
Stop at
drive.
people's houses.
We would drive into people's houses and let them know.
Oh my goodness.
And then
Wow.
and then everybody come. Well, the first time that happened,
Wow.
I got there an hour after the alert had gone off. The planes were already being, moving and all this kind of stuff, and it was like, oh, okay, so you guys did all that stuff, and all I did is get people to come in. Well, they changed that.
Did everybody have to move back on?
No, no,
Oh.
No.
Just
but
key personnel.
I did.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I also have another real memory of you. We were still in guest housing, I think, and you were going to take the bus to go to school. And you said, "You don't need to come, Mom. I can do it." I'm going with you. That's just his personality.
Yeah.
Versus the other two would not have done that.
I probably cried when you left for kindergarten.
Well, but you brained Jeff like as a 3-year-old, so that may have been part of it. So you were in
We were in guest housing.
guest housing, and what happened to him?
Well, your dad set him on
the end of the bed.
And
The pillow's up there. Here's
some
the end. I
reason.
set him in the middle of the bed, and he went off backwards.
you didn't set it. Yeah, okay.
His feet were this way,
Yeah.
and I set him down, and he went bloop.
And he got
And there was a transformer, which was, sitting on
his
the-
head
on-
hit it
on
and
the
it
floor,
split it
right
You
open.
could plug US plugs in it, and then it converted
and
it
it
to German
went
power.
into their power.
That
And
was
it was sitting right below the bed, and he landed on it right about here somewhere.
And we didn't have a car. Somebody from the German lady that was in charge of the guest housing took us to the hospital.
Which
And-
was off base.
So you guys must have been with me because I was there too.
Yeah.
And he came out with his
I
head
think the
off.
whole
You know what I
family went.
remember from that?
Huh.
We got gummy bears, which they called goomy bears.
Gummy bears.
Gummibären.
I don't know if they were meant for Jeff, but I remember eating them.
Do you? And
Yeah.
the next morning, he went out and went to work, and somebody came and knocked on the door to greet me. I couldn't get the door open. I hated those German doors. I could not work them. I tried every sort of thing. And hello. I'm here with 3 little kids and I can't get out. I don't even know how we ate. I don't know what happened, but Germany was traumatic for me.
Especially right at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, the first few days,
Yeah, it
just figuring out, the people who work in the cafeteria speak German. Oh, okay, well, we don't. Anyway,
And you're bad at languages. We already
That's
know that.
right. I was just gonna say, and that's even harder than Spanish.
It's really true.
Yeah.
I signed up for German lessons.
Oh, did you?
I did when we were in
in
Liederbach.
base housing.
Base housing, maybe.
Yep.
And between taking care of 3 little kids, and then our household goods came, and I said, I cannot do this. This is too much. So I didn't.
So, remind me of what happened with the Christmas tree.
Oh,
So we're back on base,
we are back on base.
and you guys end up wanting to bring this big Christmas tree into the
Yeah.
apartment.
We pulled it up by rope through the window.
Up the outside.
We did.
I didn't see any other ones doing that.
Was it too big to get through the stairway, or did you just think?
No, I think it was. I just thought it would be. We were on the 3rd floor.
Yeah.
I thought we
So-
were on the 4th floor. We were
No,
on the
third.
third.
I
No,
remember
3rd. There were
that.
4 floors, but we were
Okay.
on 3rd, and I think I just thought that it would be easier to do it that way. Just pull it up on a rope,
Yeah, because I've seen this picture of a Christmas tree upside down, halfway
halfway
up.
up. Yeah.
Some
And
other guy
we-
was helping
we
you.
got
Somebody.
it. We got it there, and whether it would have been easier to do it another way, no, a normal
Probably
way,
not.
who knows?
Probably not.
It was
But
fun.
we lived in base housing then, And at that, while we were there a year and a half. That was when they decided back in the States and all over the place that we had to cut back on the amount of driving we were doing. In the United States,
It was,
well, we weren't
it was a gas
shortage.
shortage.
it was a gas shortage, yeah.
Yeah.
And there were huge lines waiting. In Germany, they said, okay, nobody will drive on Sunday. Period.
Ooh,
That was it.
end of story.
There wasn't, and so we walked.
We walked
On
to
Sunday, we walked wherever we needed to, and it was sort of like a day off almost.
That's kind of cool.
But
Well, you kind of remember going to the officers club for breakfast on Sundays a little bit.
I mean, from the discussions, I'm not sure if I mean,
I don't remember it.
yeah, I would just, but I remember.
Tony? Was it Tony?
I think it's Tony, and I think I had ham omelet every time, and I think Jeff had hot dog or pancakes.
Really?
I was gonna say a hot dog for breakfast.
But-
well, it was
Well, it would've been
after it was
after
after
church. Would've
church,
been
and
lunch.
so it was a
okay.
brunch more than
Okay.
anything else.
So no, I think he did pancakes maybe.
could have.
But Tony knew what.
Every
What
one of
our
you
order was
wanted.
when we
It
got
was a
there.
dunk, 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 dunk. Okay.
Yeah. But that was kind of cool because we were on base and you could go to church. We could go to the base chapel
Yeah.
and then go out to eat and the movies even. I think we went to
Yeah,
the
but
movies.
it was all right there on
Yeah.
base. I mean,
Right.
and it was a small base.
Yeah.
It wasn't a large base.
So then you decided that you weren't going to stay in. So in Germany, you decided you were getting out.
Right. We had deployed 3 planes to Spain, and they were flying out over the Mediterranean, and actually shooting live
Ammunition.
ammunition. That's it, ammo. Because in Germany there was no place to do that. So they went down there, and we had a good time. We did well, but I was walking around by myself on a Sunday, praying, trying to decide: are we going to stay in for 8 years? I mean, we were at the 8-year point, and if we stayed beyond that. We pretty much had
You
decided
just
that
make
would have been
sense to
okay.
keep going.
Yeah, you keep going at that point. So that was at the point where I decided, well, at the point of time, it was in '74. Vietnam was closing down, and they were reducing the number of people in the service, and all of a sudden they said, well, you can sign up to get out here in Spain at the base there. So I did. And yeah, not knowing that.
I don't remember that either.
Yeah, well, and then we went back, and I think that was 6 months before we actually got out and went home. We got out in June of '74.
We knew it was hard for you kids to go to different schools
The
all
oth-
the time and
the other
everything.
the main reason we made that decision was the kids from our base out in the middle of the boondocks were bused into Wiesbaden, which was about an hour's bus ride on Monday, stayed in dorms throughout the week, came back on Friday.
Even the elementary
And that
kids?
was
not the
I think it was
elementary.
junior high
Junior high.
and high school.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah, 'cause
because
They
you,
had you went to elementary school.
yeah, you went to
there.
kindergarten there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
first grade. So we decided to get out. That was the biggest thing. We didn't want to, when you guys were teenagers, end up having an overseas assignment and being in that kind of a situation where you weren't even at home. We just thought that was wrong. And
Because you had already gone to 2 schools, and
right, you had gone in Montgomery, started kindergarten in Montgomery, finished kindergarten over there, and
Yeah. Well, before we leave Germany, kind of connect us to how you ran into the Navs.
the Navigators had military ministry going on at several of the bases in Germany. The guy that was at our base was the head of, he was in charge of all the other ones. And
Let me stop you for just a minute. We had gone to Officers Christian Fellowship before when we were in Washington.
right, but there wasn't
But
anything
there wasn't
there.
anything in Germany like that.
And this guy had some nav. We had tried when we were in Washington D.C. tried to get into something, checked with the navs, and they only dealt with enlisted.
Yep.
So we had a contact, but it hadn't worked out. And then when we were over there, we weren't enlisted, and Bob invited us. Well, because it was an office position, he wasn't doing the normal navigator stuff. There were people at other bases that were just doing normal nav ground level work, but he was coordinating all of the efforts that were going on there. So he decided he wanted to lead a Bible study, and
We saw an advertisement.
yeah,
on the
he
board.
went to the chaplain and asked if he could do it through the base chapel, and the guy said yes. So there was a thing on the board for this Bible study, and it didn't say it had to be just enlisted. So we were the only officers in this group of a bunch of enlisted guys, and that's how we.
We were about the only married couple
Yeah.
too. There was
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
really?
there was
There's-
one enlisted married couple, but
Yeah, and she left him and went home. And there was one other couple who weren't in the Air Force. They were just
that's it.
U.S. citizens who were in Germany bouncing around. And they came to it.
Anyway, it was an interesting study.
Yeah, so that's how we got started with them. When we left Germany, which was next, Bob and Verna stayed with us for a couple days while they were getting out of their house, which was on the economy, and getting things ready. And then they left and went back to the States and went to Florida.
Florida.
That's where their ministry continued.
But they asked us to join them.
Yep.
If we would join them in their ministry, and we said no. For one thing, I didn't want it because he was kind of anti-female.
Well,
Anyway, yeah, he just wasn't
the
used
ministry at that time was mostly with guys in the military.
to it. Yeah.
And so the women's role was to take care of the kids in the house.
The support.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all support. And
But
I mean, literally, you didn't talk. I mean, we would go to the Bible studies, and Verna would be out in the kitchen doing stuff,
his wife.
and serve some kind of.
But I talked.
Yeah, but she was in the Bible study and she talked, and she and Bob would go at it.
Kind of.
He had never done anything other than just enlisted men.
But he did
But
ask
it-
us
but
to
it was
join,
good. Yeah.
join him, and we said no. But he wrote a letter to your dad, and he said, "Why don't you go back and get trained with IBM, and then go out to the Navigator headquarters
Glen Airy.
and help them with their computers?"
Really?
He really did.
So that was the first seed of.
Of Glen Airy.
So, because I always thought that it was after 4 years in Michigan, you kind of thought, oh, this might be interesting.
They went to Florida. We came back to Michigan.
But we stayed in kind of contact with him or something. But he wrote you that letter.
Right. And
It was prophecy almost.
and Clancy and Doris had come from Brazil. They had been missionaries in Brazil, and they were there in Drayton. And we talked, and I couldn't help but say something about the Navs. And there was a couple from Mexico that lived in Michigan, and they were home on furlough. And we ended up going to a Bible study that they held, and so we had some contact that kept going. And Clancy was interested enough in what he was hearing to say, how do I get some of this training? And we got him together with one of the guys that was in Lansing, and he, as a pastor, started
Amazing.
one-on-one discipleship training with one of the guys from Lansing. And then we ended up getting into the 2-7 study, and about 80% of the people who went to the church there in Drayton went through the 2.7 study. And it was halfway through
But we
that.
kind of skipped a little bit of that.
Yeah, well, I was working at
IBM.
IBM down in Detroit.
But that's exactly what Bob said. Get trained with IBM, and then you can go out.
Yeah, and so that is the way it worked. We had a magazine that came out every month, and there was a little card in it, you know. And I don't even remember what it was about. It wasn't. It was some kind of volunteering.
They were asking for volunteers, and you asked if there
money.
were.
And I said, "Do you even have a computer?" You know, and I in February I sent that in, and we didn't hear anything till.
So it was
Well,
kind
we were
of
there for 4 years.
So it was kind of a blind.
Yeah, it was.
Absolutely, I'd forgotten about it. And at some point,
They contacted you and asked
after
you to
the
come out for an interview.
we were in the 4th year there in Drayton, and yeah, one of the programmers, the guy who happened to be the programming manager, called me and we talked, and they had a computer. So I went out in November to interview to see what it was like to the Glen, and they offered me a job. And
you left January 1st.
1st of 79, I drove the little VW after we had lost a cylinder in the engine and they had replaced it. I mean, literally.
So this was in the States the whole time you were in Germany, and you came back and was that your first car? The one you went on your honeymoon with?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
different one.
No, that one was gone.
Okay. Okay.
This was another. Actually, but they did replace one of the 4 cylinders, and I did pick it up from the guy that did it, packed the car, and left January 1st, and drove out, stopped at Denny's in Wheaton, Illinois, and went on the rest of the way
Where did you stay when you came out to interview?
with one of the guy's families.
Okay.
Yep. And I went out to visit one time, and you stayed.
Because I was there for
with
3
the
months.
Zellers, I think. You stayed with
Yeah.
Passmores.
Passmores.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll take a break here. I want to come back to a little bit of our time in Michigan. We'll transition into the Colorado.